Hey guys, let's try to keep it mellow on this video. Keeping it nice and smooth. Greetings, programs. Welcome back to good old Runehammer. Hanker and Farnell here, your old buddy with another great episode. How to play D&D just a little bit more better. And we are here in the warm glow of the Lair of Knowledge. You can almost feel the knowledge osmosifying. Osmosis. I meant to do this as an October reading video, but I never read as fast as I want to, and gotta make sure that what I read, I fully read, get to the end and all that good stuff, actually, you know, like comprehend what I read. Reading is very cool, and you should do it. So here's my recent reading list. I'm glad to have gotten through all these and move on to the next sort of chapter, if you will. All right, so these are the books that I've been chowing through in the past month or so. So you can see what's going on there. The first one is this book, which is great, called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And it's the talks or the sayings of Shinryo Suzuki. And this guy is like a Zen master right here. This is bona fide Zen master material. Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, Shinryo Suzuki. And nice little compact book. I love books of this size. There's something very charming about them. They always make me happy. I love cloth-bound books. So this is not an RPG book. This is Zen sayings and Zen teachings. And it's definitely not for everyone. If you're not used to reading sort of esoteric philosophy, which is kind of strange twists of words to kind of knock your brain loose, which Zen is, all about. If you're not familiar with Zen, well, how do you really describe it? It basically takes the stance that the best thing you can do for mental growth and spiritual growth is to allow life and thoughts to enter and depart you and your mind freely, and not to cling to those thoughts or actions, and just to sort of be this vessel through which the world passes like this breeze. And in a way, all of us are like that. Just the act of breathing is sort of this bringing in and releasing of the world, right? And what Zen asks is that you sort of mindfully or with a sense of focus refine this practice of allowing your thoughts and your sort of spiritual state almost to rise, fall, come, go, slide past you in a way. And the less attached you become to all those different sort of states, moments, and thoughts, the more serene you'll become, and the greater your sort of spiritual view of the world can become. So I've always been interested in Zen since back in college. And this book is great because it isn't really a derivative or like a secondary source, talking about Zen from a sort of an outside point of view. But this is like straight transcripts from Shinryo Suzuki's like talks to his students and disciples and so forth. And so you're kind of hearing right out of his mouth, what this experience or this way of life is. Now, the funny thing about Zen is that it's very difficult to describe in a meaningful way. It's sort of everything and nothing, if you will. And if a phrase like everything and nothing is meaningful to you, and you can start to see, this sort of interesting and elusive concept down inside of there, then you're going to love this kind of book. You're very open-minded to it, and if you're interested in finding out more about Zen, this is a great way to have a taste. It's also sort of survived the test of time. This is a very well-known sort of writing about Zen. So I had read this a few years ago, and I wanted to sort of go through it again. It's a very like a practice-oriented book. It feels like, taking a sort of week off from thinking and sort of letting thoughts rise and fall. And sometimes that can be very good for your creative output. What Picasso called filling the well, which is like every once in a while you need to just sort of have a different experience and refill why you were creative in the first place. And for me, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind serves that function. So I'm sure in a few years I'll read this again. Great book. Nerp. Okay, the second one is a little known piece of work here. These two kind of go together. This was a Kickstarter a ways back, but the author, Jacob Hurst, he contacted me via email and just asked me if I would take a look at these books and give him, and he didn't want me to do like a review on my channel or anything like that. He just actually wanted sort of some feedback of what I thought about the book work and, you know, how he could keep going forward. He's definitely in the bookmaking game to stay. He's definitely meaning business with these. These are very well-made books. So the Hot Springs Island sort of D&D world, or it's kind of like an adventure path, is a comparable amount of work, like a Pathfinder adventure path. Like it's a big, several adventures setting with lots of detail, right? And it comes in two pieces. This one I'm going to talk about a little bit less, which is the real adventure book. And so this is like a giant hex crawl with all kinds of fantastic maps and lots of detail and lots of rolling tables to go with the hexes, and then some loot and monsters in the back. Crazy stuff. Now this book I actually found so dense with material, I found it a little difficult to fully absorb. Now the second part of the Hot Springs Island sort of experience is this little guy, and once again I love books of this size. For some reason they just capture my attention. This is called A Field Guide to Hot Springs Island. This book is amazing because it's in character. The whole book is written from the viewpoint of people that are in this world, and they categorize the monsters and the plant life and different experiences that they had trying to explore the islands. And it's all written in world. So instead of talking like a game designer who's describing a setting to you, it's all described from the point of view of the people in this world. But it's still kind of organized like a familiar RPG book. Like you get some stories, you get some plant life, you get some cultural stuff, and you get some monsters. This is really a great, great book. And I don't mean to use hyperbole here. I honestly would love to see our hobby do more books in character. That means not talking to me as, you know, as a publisher or as a game designer, but talking from the world outward to me. It's really, really interesting and really a fun read. I read this cover to cover, all these little ideas, and it's just a very odd and quirky little world that they've developed. It's a sort of a very old, you know, elven, tropical, it's just very strange. So I can't recommend this one strong enough. I know I say that a lot about a lot of the books that I show on my channel, but generally for a book to get to this point, I'm already really excited about it. So I generally don't bring books out in front of you guys that I'm going to be like, this is kind of meh. It's not really my style. I really just want to tell you about the ones that I'm excited about. Also, I start other books, and you know, this last month was definitely no exception. And if I'm not excited about them, I just don't finish them. So if I don't finish a book, I don't really feel qualified to say anything about it. So you won't really see me doing books that I'm not excited about. Okay, next we're going to go back into the sort of Dark Sun kind of phase that I'm in right now. I'm really excited not only about Dark Sun proper, you know, as a setting that is well developed, but just more as an imagination seed that I would like to take to my own place. You guys know how I am. I generally don't play settings right out of books. I get excited about something that I read and I start just wandering off and inventing my own worlds and coming up with my own game. Back in the day, I got the box set. I think I got the first Pentad novel, and I got one of the adventures, the one with the weird German name. It's called like Runehammer. I got that for Dark Sun too, and I think that's about as far as I went. And especially in the early days, like back in my AD&D days, I didn't, you know, like look further. I would get a little book and I would just, oh man, I would just use that thing up. I wouldn't be like, what other books are there? Nowadays, it's like a big fun research project. So looking through a lot of the available Dark Sun stuff, I was drawn to a few things. Now first is this huge novel called Lost Gods by Brom. Now, as you guys may have known, Brom is one of the key artists to visualize Dark Sun. And what I discovered looking into Brom is that he actually sort of lives in this kind of world that resembles Dark Sun. As far as being an artist and a writer, he has continued to expand that kind of hellish and very unique tone throughout his career. And it's really interesting. It's found its way into some of Guillermo del Toro's work and other places. And he has this mythic, hellish, but also human and sort of touchable style. Anyway, of all the stuff that I'd seen that he's done, I was really drawn to this. I really like mythic fiction. And mythic fiction is, you know, sort of like fantasy, but on a more cosmic and even sort of godlike scale at times. And when I heard about this book, which is kind of, in some ways has parallels to Dante's Inferno, if you ever read that, you know, Virgil's journey through the circles of hell. But this is far less dogmatic and far less, you know, map driven. This is a much more human story. Cool part too is you get some great color plates by Brom here in the middle of the book that show some of the key sort of mythic characters in the story. I just finished this a couple nights ago. This was a big read. This is 500 pages or so. Yeah, 500 pages. This was a really, really fun read. This has nothing to do with RPGs. This is just a big, giant novel. And in the first, 10 pages, I can usually tell if I'm going to like a novel. And I really enjoyed this. I like Brom's style. I would like to think that it echoes my style, which is that I have a lot of story to tell. And so I don't always get lost in a lot of detail. And I feel that's how Brom told this story. There's a lot of places he wants to go and things he wants to tell you about, rather than get right, way down at the sort of ant level of a particular scene. And I love that writing style. So if you enjoy a big mythic kind of hellish story, man, this is a great time and really can inform some of the more nuanced and I think more interesting concepts that are at play in a Dark Sun kind of world. It's not all just about, magic, ravaging a world and wastelands and caravans and bug people and, this kind of otherworldly stuff. There's a more subtle layer to a campaign that would be influenced by Dark Sun, which is this sort of hellish layer where gods aren't quite all they were chalked up to be. And there is an interesting layer of the cosmos between life and death, and it's desert-like, and I don't want to spoil anything, but it's just an extremely visual and rich way of seeing this more nuanced world, and this is kind of where I'm wanting to take my next campaign. We'll have a proud place among the other books. Okay, so pursuant to this Dark Sun research project, I remembered Dragon Kings from back in the day, but I never got it. This is Dragon King. This is the original AD&D version, and it's produced, you can see, just like the Dark Sun box set as far as this kind of paper style and this layout style. You've got some really cool drawings by Brom in here, especially these skiffs, these vehicles that travel across the desert, if I can find one here. Yeah, these. Just, Brom's artwork is just so amazing and so excellent. These big wheels that can go through the sea of silt, and silt skimmer and stuff. I like the stuff in here. I want to use some of these little tricks, like just the silt skimmer alone. Really cool. Okay, but then meanwhile, Timothy Brown, who is the co-designer of Dark Sun, he did the original one, but then he came back years later and Brom did a new cover, which I think the cover is a little bit cooler. It's really neat, but Brom just has a strange sense of what dragons are and stuff. And in this case, they are literally the Dragon Kings of Athos. But in this amazing book, Timothy Brown basically goes all in on Athos and on building the world of Dark Sun with no fetters about system. So there's no system data in here at all. This is completely a world book. And so if you don't want that kind of AD&D statistical cruft or leftover because you're not playing second edition, this book might be a little more jam-packed. It's definitely got more material in it. And it has these great rendered maps. This kind of overview of the space, like satellite view, is really cool. So this book is definitely bigger. It has more stuff. It's a bigger view of the world. They came back and did this under their own label, added more art. It's full color, whereas the original is definitely not full color. It's much more black and white. So you'd think, wow, I mean, this is just so much more modern and so much more produced and glossy and wow. But I gotta say, I really like the original AD&D supplement better. I feel it's a little tighter. I just have to read a little less to get my cogs going. So if you're thinking about getting into Dark Sun and you want like an in-depth world of all the facts of Athos, this is a really fun way to get it. If you want to kind of get the old school experience and maybe even glean some stats out of old second edition stat blocks, then this is the one you want. But in a lot of ways, these are the same book. I mean, they're both called Dragon Kings, and in a lot of ways, they tell the same story, which is the story of Athos and the dragons and the one that's going to awaken and all this kind of stuff, Tyr and Kalak and all that kind of stuff. So I just finished, getting through enough of these to really, sensibly compare them. And I still, the second edition rules cyclopedia, which I've shown on a lot of my live streams, is still one of my favorite game books of all time. And this sort of takes me back to some of that. I mean, yeah, you have shenanigans with some of the mechanics back then and stuff like that, but it's really easy to look past all that stuff and to see and feel this old way of imagining. It's beyond 20th level. Now let me know, any of you guys, if you get a druid past 20th level. That's awesome. I am a huge fan of reading. It's the coolest thing. I know it's corny, but reading is cool. Okay, that's all I got for you guys. I got a lot of projects going, so I got to get back to them. I just wanted to stop off real quick here in the Lair of Knowledge and just be like, yo, check out some books that I just finished getting through. So give them a look. Maybe you'll be interested. Let me know in a comment or send me a message on Facebook, and let's kick up this conversation about these wonderful little works. And I'll see you guys on the internet. Strength, honor, and beer. Where is my beer?